On the SigmaNest side, we're going to talk about the material optimization aspect with nesting, the NC programming, and then ultimately posting code to your machines. We're going to cover dynamic work order nesting, demand planning through your shop, and shop floor visibility, feedback, and then ultimately job completions back up to the Epicor side. So a little bit about me. My name is Ryan Lustig. I am the Territory Sales Director for SigmaTek over the Great Lakes and Northeast region. I've been with SigmaTek for about 6 years now, and some important things about me: I am a huge Ohio State Buckeyes fan, and also painfully a huge Bengals fan. As you know, we've not won a playoff game in a very long time, so it's a little bit depressing to be a Bengals fan. Husband, father of 2 wonderful children. Really just proud to be part of SigmaTek Systems and the industry leader in nesting technology and automated manufacturing solutions. So with me today is Josh Patrick. I'll go ahead and turn things over to him.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Patrick. I am a solution architect and senior technical business analyst with Encompass Solutions. I've been with Encompass for 6 years. I've been working with ERPs for about 16. Unlike Ryan, I am not an Ohio State fan, but War Eagle for all of my SEC and Auburn brethren down there. And unfortunately, I am a Bengals fan as well, and all Cincinnati sports. And it is a painful existence, that's for sure. But basically, what I want to do today is kind of talk to you a little bit about the integration that we've worked on with SigmaTek for Epicor ERP. And take you through some of the advantages that you can see and how you can leverage that for your business. Just a little bit about Encompass to start with. We are a Platinum Epicor partner. We've experienced 50% growth over the last 4 years, so we've really seen a lot of uptrend in businesses using ERP and growth for our business as a result. We are a very senior staff of 45 plus worldwide. Based mostly out of Greensboro, North Carolina, but we do have a contingency, across the world. And we work very closely with Epicor for a lot of both implementation services, work with their CSG group for custom solutions. So we have a really strong relationship with Epicor and a lot of experience in some of the solutions that we've developed for our customers. Epicor specifically, I know there are a lot of people on the line that may not be familiar with Epicor, but it is a fully functional, fully integrated ERP system. It's written on the Microsoft platform, so everything has been finely tuned to work with Microsoft technologies. It has a lot of extensive integration capabilities as well. So that's kind of what we're leveraging as part of today's demo, but you have the ability to create your own integrations with Service Connect, which is a built-in tool, the BPM, which is an automation and rules engine, and then you can also, as I'll kind of take us through a little bit, do custom dashboards and reports and those kinds of things as well. It's a very well-established, very very stable company, over 20,000 customers, around $1 billion in revenue, and obviously has a global presence as well.
All right, so I know that many of you do have some familiarity with SigmaNest already. You may already be a customer or have SigmaNest as one of your as your product for nesting. So today we're obviously going to cover a little bit more of the integration and what I would consider to be more of a phase 3, phase 4, which is the integration aspect with an ERP system, then shop floor communication. But before we get to that, a little bit about SigmaTek. If you are not familiar with us, we were founded in 1993. We are currently headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, about 250 employees globally. So we've got offices all over the place, 18,000 users worldwide. So we're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, nesting manufacturing solution providers, and we are recognized as the industry leader. So we are talking a lot about integration today from the ERP side, but there's also integration with other, such as your machine, engineering, and shop floor. So on the machine side, SigmaNest is a single solution for all of your cutting and punching equipment. We've got a product for just about any machine in your shop. So your lasers, your punches, water jets, plasmas, press brakes, tube cutting machines, On the engineering side, we do have the ability to communicate with your whatever design system you're using. So some of the standard file formats would be your DXF, your DWG files, but also the 3Ds with SolidWorks, Inventor, NX, CATIA, Creo, to name a few. One of the nice things about our communication with our product called SIMTRANS and an ERP can call out a specific part, whether it be 3D or 2D. We can automatically go out and retrieve that part and bring it into SigmaNest, so eliminate much of that manual importing that a lot of our users and programmers are currently doing. On the ERP side, Josh is going to show some passing of work orders and inventory from Epicor, but really the sky's the limit when it comes to what we can get from Epicor to SigmaNest. A lot of what Encompass does is yes, we have an out-of-the-box somewhat solution, but it's very much customizable depending on your requirements, how you want to see this work. So we're going to give you an idea of how this could work, but obviously you guys can decide what you want it to look like. Then finally on the shop floor, just the feedback aspect and giving management visibility, real cut times, scrap percentages if parts are rejected, somewhat real time giving information or feedback back to your programmer to say, hey, this part was rejected, it's become a high priority. So there's a lot of nice things that we can do. So in terms of what system is making all of this happen in the background, SIMTRANS is our ERP interface solution. SIMTRANS will sit out on your server. It does not need to be touched. It's just sitting there waiting for new data to be released from your ERP. When new data is released, such as work orders, work order requirements, part requirements within a work order, that information is being sent down to SigmaNest. So to give you an idea, you may have 5 orders entered the night before into Epicor, and the next morning your programmer will show up and see all 5 work orders waiting for him on his desk within SigmaNest, and all the parts, if they've been drawn already and they exist, will be waiting inside their corresponding work orders for him to just start nesting. So it's a very automated integrated solution. We're also going to talk about Load Manager and Color Offload. Load Manager is our shop scheduling tool or demand planning tool. It's very flexible. It allows you to schedule the demand for each one of your machines. So you'll notice with this little screenshot, I've got multiple machines set up. If you have a machine group, you can actually drag and drop a program from one machine to the other if it's compatible. So if you've got maybe scheduled maintenance or preventative maintenance for one of your machines, drag and drop it to your other machine, and it will automatically repost it out to the proper color offload feed. So your operator knows then that, hey, I'm going to be running this job and the other guy will not. So it's very flexible. On the other screenshot with color offload, it's going to give you a nice colorful representation of all the different parts that you have within different work orders. So you'll notice everything is color coordinated, so all my green parts stay together. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. So this is based on work orders, but you could also do it based on a secondary operation. So all of your brake parts are one color, all of your paint parts are another color. So for each of the secondary operations, you can also use the color coordination for that as well. So again, just giving you a lot of different ways that you can make this system work. It's very tweakable to be exactly what you want it to be. All right, so I'm going to end the PowerPoint. And I'm going to hop over to SigmaNest real quick before I turn things over to Josh. And the 2 things that we're going to be focusing on today, guys, and hopefully before I get too far, you'll realize if you're not a SigmaNest user, this is going to look pretty familiar. But if you are a SigmaNest user, it's going to look very familiar. If you're not, it's a very modern user interface. So you're going to have a ribbon-style bar, much like your Microsoft Office, with single-click buttons, drop-downs. You're going to have tabs across the top of the screen. It's very logical and very easy to learn because your flow is always moving from left to right. It makes it very easy to learn and very easy to teach others. So what we're going to be focusing on today, though, is going to be your work order button. So all of these work orders here are work orders that will come in from Epicor. So this list is, again, this is where if I were to click on a work order and see a part file, you'll be able to see here's the work order number, here's the part that's within it. And you can do a one-to-one, so one work order with one part. The other aspect we're going to cover is going to be your sheet list. So when you are sending actual sheets from Epicor to SigmaNest, they're going to show up within your inventory. So those are the 2 options that we're going to be covering today as part of the integration. But before we get too far, I'm going to go ahead and send things over to Josh.
So as Ryan was talking about, what we're actually going to do is show you some of the transactions and how they're driven from the ERP system. So I'm opening up the latest version of Epicor. once again, it's written on the Microsoft platform, so you'll notice if you're using older versions of Epicor, the user interface has changed quite drastically. So you'll notice it's optimized for touch. You have the ability to deploy tiles out to your home screen. This is totally configurable. I'm logged in as an admin, and I made some favorites here for some of the forms that I'm going to be going into today. What we're actually going to start with, as Ryan mentioned, there are a couple of different transactions that we're going to be looking at. So the first is in the sheet management side of SigmaNest. What we're going to do is actually drive that from a receipt in Epicor. So receiving material into inventory from the ERP system, leveraging a lot of the inventory management capabilities, the financial capabilities of the ERP system. And then once that receipt happens, it's going to go, feed into SigmaNest so that you can nest against that, as well as the demand side. So order entry from a customer, setting up jobs or work orders to then flow through to SigmaNest so that, as Ryan mentioned, when your planner comes in the morning, he has a list of work to go. So what I'm actually going to do is start with just a receipt entry. Prior to the demo, I went ahead and set up a couple of purchase orders in the system just so that for the sake of time, we can go through them. So I'm going to pull up purchase order 4507. I'm going to give it a packing slip. This is how you do a standard receipt in Epicor. And basically at this point, Epicor is going to pull in the information from my purchase order, and I'm going to create a new receipt line. So there are several ways I can do this. There's an automated mass receipt, but what I really want to do is show everybody the capabilities of pulling in that information from the receipt in our part master on inventory. So what you can see here is that we have a part here, an 829, 120 by 48, and there's attributes that are pulled in as well. So from my part master, I pulled in my length, width, and my thickness. And what I want to do real quick is just kind of show you how that's set up in the part master. So I'm going to right-click in a field. Epicor, for those of you who aren't familiar, just so you can follow along with what I'm doing, allows me to open up forms in context. So by right-clicking, it gives me the opportunity to open up part entry. And you can see how this part is set up in my inventory. So I have this in a cold rolled group. I have a net weight stored. I can do my part groups and part classes. These are inventoried in each. I'm marking this as a lot tracked item. And on my attribute side, I have my length, width, and my thickness information all populated here. So from a purchase standpoint, you can see this is a purchase part. That's where that information is coming in from my part maintenance automatically. You can see the quantity is defaulted in from my purchase order line. And it's actually prompting me for a lot number here because, as I mentioned, it is a lot tracked part. So I want to click next part here, or next lot. It's going to give me a predefined sequence that I've mapped out. And it's also going to prompt me for a heat number. So Epicor allows you to track not only the attribute or the lot itself, but attributes against the lot as well. So I'm just going to type that in. And at this point, I've created my receipt, when I click the receive button, that's what's actually going to generate the inventory, both in Epicor, but it's also going to send the transaction to SigmaNest through the SIMTRANS integration to generate that sheet in the SIMTRANS environment. So that's basically how the sheet inventory works. So at this point, I have 5 that have been received in inventory on the Epicor side, and those 5 will be reflected in SIMTRANS as well. So kind of taking us from the purchasing side to fulfilling demand, what I've actually done is create a sales order. So a customer has created a sales order, called in, or we took it, while out at a customer site visit. And Epicor, very much like Ryan was talking about with SIMTRANS, is very Microsoft-centric. So you see the file menu across the top, a lot of shortcuts, actions menu. Grids that I can, sort, rearrange, move, do calculations on. So a lot of functionality built into the forms and interface itself. But what you'll notice here is that I have several lines of several different parts that have been ordered. Unlike the purchase parts, these are actually are manufactured parts. So if I look at this one in my part master, just to kind of show you a little bit of a difference here, I have the type is of manufactured part. This is my group of nested parts. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of point out as part of the integration is we can capture that DXF file. So we can have a part image, the location of a DXF, so that if you need to send that through from the ERP system, we can capture that information here as well. There's also revision information. So Epicor allows you to create methods of manufacturing and manage your revisions, your approvals, all through the ERP system as well. So this is using revision A, and so that's where, when I create jobs, it's going to generate that from that template. So I just kind of wanted to point out, some of the differences there on the inventory side. So from the order itself, what I'm actually going to do, I've created some of these jobs already, but Epicor has a lot of shortcuts available in their actions menu. So I'm going to go to the order job wizard, and this is going to prompt me to create jobs automatically, or work orders. I know some people, it's a terminology difference, but I'm going to go ahead and just show you an example of how to create one for line 15. So I'm going to go ahead and create a job for this. It's going to show me all the other jobs that already exist for this same part, and it's going to go out and actually generate a job on the system for this particular part against this order. So once again, I can use my right click and go to my job entry screen, and this is going to allow us to actually look a little more in depth at the job itself. So what you can see here is the job has come through for the part that's specific. I have my description has flown through as well, and then I have my demand summary. So I can see, visibility, fully integrated system. I can see that this work order is meant to fulfill this particular customer demand for XYZ Corp, the production quantity that's expected. I also, from that template I was talking about earlier, have things like the material that's going to be required. So that 120 by 48 by default is what is my input part, the quantity, operations. So I have the CNC machine group set up, and I've also set up a Cincinnati laser, or a Cincy laser here, as part of this job. But all this information is stored in the ERP system. It's come through automatically from that job wizard. And so what I'm going to do now is just release this job, and this is what's actually going to drive that transaction through SIMTRANS and create the job in SigmaNest for you. And so, once again, we have, as part of this demo, created the orders sort of ahead of time, but just so you can kind of see how we created them into visibility. I'm just going to open up the shop floor dashboard here. So once again, I mentioned earlier the dashboards that are available in Epicor. This is just an example of one, but you can see operations that are starting today. So there's the job that we just released, and all the other ones that released that you should now be able to see in Ryan's environment. So at this point, we've generated our sheet inventory, we've created our order for our customer, created the demand on the floor, and generated that work order.
All right, so right now, guys, this is just a quick shot. This is a test server that we have set up that's actually running SIMTRANS. So you'll notice I've got my SIMTRANS tool pulled up here. And again, what it's doing is just sitting here looking for new information to process. So as Josh was outputting those work orders and inventory, that's running through SIMTRANS, and SIMTRANS is actually processing the work and placing it into SigmaNest. So what does that look like on the SigmaNest side? Let's go ahead and hop in there. If I go back to my seat of SigmaNest and go to my work orders button, you'll notice I've got a bunch of different work orders that Josh has sent me from Epicor. I've also got some inventory that Josh has sent me as well. So here's some of those item codes that he mentioned earlier, different sheet sizes, different remnants, so on and so forth. So as a programmer, my workflow, again, I don't need to come in here and import any parts manually. You can do that. So here's my DXF, DWG, step, SolidWorks, again, depending on what you guys are using to draw. But all I should have to do then, again, using the scenario we mentioned earlier, 5 orders get entered the night before, you show up the next morning, and they're waiting for the programmer. I'm going to go right to my nesting section and create a new nesting task. So once I have a new nesting task, I can go straight to my work orders button. And this is going to look very similar to that work order list I just showed you. The nice thing about this list is it can be sorted all different types of ways. We can do material type, we can do thickness, you can do based on a due date, it can be based on a customer, however you want to do it, but you can drag and drop this list, and once I drag and drop it, the next time I come into this list, it's going to be sorted exactly how you have it. There are some fail-safes put into place as well before I get too far. So let's say the scenario is that you've got an order, but maybe the geometry does not exist just yet, so it just hasn't been drawn. We do catch that, so we will still import the work order, but you'll notice underneath my work order option, I've got an undefined work order. So this part here. So this work order was asked for, or it was created, but this part does not yet exist. So as a programmer, I can't nest it. I'm going to have to find out where that part went because it's going to be grayed out, showing that, hey, this part does not exist. So what I can quickly do is create just a standard shape. Let's just say it's a simple base plate. These are all parametric shapes, so you can type in your dimensions. And then all I need to do is link it to the actual work order that is undefined. So now I've created the part, I've linked it to that work order, and now I can nest it. So again, here goes the workflow. So nesting, create a new nesting task, go straight to your work orders option. I'm just going to sort this list rather than doing it the way I showed you before. You can sort the list based on a material field. So I'm just going to select some parts and hit OK. So once I have my parts selected, I'm going to window them over, and now I'm going to select some inventory. So once I have my sheets list tab, I'm going to go straight to my library, and it's going to show me only the sheets and a virus scan, but it's going to show me only the sheets that are available based on the parts that I'm getting ready to cut. So it's not going to show you any sheets that don't match the material requirements of the parts you need to nest. So I'm going to select a 96 by 48 and a 120 by 48 and load them both in there. So we have a really nice tool called Best Sheet Analysis. This allows you to have SigmaNest nest on both sheets to determine, based on the group of parts that you have, which dimension of sheet is going to give you the best yield. So I can turn on my Best Sheet Analysis, select OK. And this is going to launch us into our nesting tab. So this is when we start moving from left to right. So nesting to nesting NC to nesting detail, where we get our report. Then all I have to do is hit auto nest. So as many of you guys know, since a lot of you are SigmaNest users, there's a lot of different types of nesting strategies. Some do take a little bit longer, some take less time. Really depends on what type of material you're cutting and what kind of yield you're looking for. But what you're going to find with our automatic nesting, you're going to get a very good yield depending on which one that you choose and what your part requirements are. So very big on automated nesting. That's definitely one of the things that differentiates us, but we also don't want to take away the manual nesting capabilities. So we've added this multi-screen view, which gives you a pretty good idea of here's all of my different layouts, and you can actually get up to 12 different screens for each of your 12 layouts. But you can take a part from one sheet and manually nest it and take it to a different sheet. So if I right-click and turn on my bump feature, you'll notice I just dragged it and dropped it from one sheet to the other, and we're respecting your part spacing and your edge distance, so we will not overlap parts and make sure everything is spaced as it should. So from there, all we need to do is go from left to right against the next tab, which is Nesting NC. Just like Auto Nest, I've got my Auto NC option, and this is just going to apply our tool path. So one of the nice things about SigmaNest is we have a lot of set as default features. So what that means is from the start, when you first import a part and you assign a material type, a thickness, and a process, so maybe it's laser, the second you import that part and assign those material parameters, your lead-ins and lead-outs, your nesting parameters, which would be your part spacing, edge distance, nesting strategy, and all of your NC functions, so whether we're common line cutting, whether we've got crash avoidance turned on, all of those features can be set as default. So you don't have to make changes unless you absolutely need to. So yes, we're big on the automation, but you also do have full control, so you can click from part to part if there's a very specific toolpath that you want to follow. So from here, I can actually simulate my cutting path. And I'm not going to play through the whole thing, but just to give you an idea. So you can simulate it, make sure you like it. If I'm happy with it, all I need to do then is say post all sheets. This is then going to generate a program for each one of my nested layouts. You guys get to designate where this file is headed, so most of the time you're sending it over your network. Your machine is looking for that folder. So when the code gets posted there, all you're doing is having the machine select the program and the operator is going to run it. We're also creating the cutting times, the estimated cut times. And in the next tab, we're going to show you how to get reports. So while this is posting out, the next tool that you're going to see is called Load Manager. Not everybody has this product with Color Offload. Not everybody needs to have this product with Color Offload. The Load Manager product is mainly for companies that have multiple machines, that may want to set up a machine group, be able to throw a job from one laser to the other. And the Color Offload tool, I've got customers that have that without Load Manager. So you don't necessarily need to have Load Manager, but it's nice from a scheduling perspective. But as I'm posting out these jobs, each one of these jobs is heading out to Load Manager to end up in a queue. And let me switch back to my server. So once they get posted out, you'll notice that we have a program, and we can drag and drop the program and schedule it out at the machine. So this Load Manager product, you can factor in your break times, you can factor in preventative maintenance, your unload and load timing. It's going to factor all of that in, but you're just going to schedule these programs as they're released. So I've got a couple more programs that are being released, and you're just going to drag and drop them based on the machine that needs to receive them. So we'll just schedule a few more. And once these jobs are scheduled, we can now hop over to Color Offload, and these jobs are going to start showing up. Now, Color Offload is going to sit down by each of your machines, so each operator will have their own seat of Color Offload, and as these jobs are being scheduled, whether it's for the Cincinnati, the Mazak, the Trump, whatever it might be, the operator who gets the job scheduled to his specific machine is going to see that program in his seat of Color Offload. As far as Load Manager is concerned, once it's scheduled for that machine and in the specific order that the person schedules it, that's exactly how it's going to show up at the machine with the Color Offload. So if at some point you decide, well, actually in Load Manager, I want to run one program before another, you can select the program and you can drag and drop it in front of another program and make sure that it gets cut before. So let's say we wanted to run P13 before P12. You can do that, and you can force your operator to run it in the order that it is received. So once you've rescheduled, again, it's going to show up in Color Offload in the order that you've rescheduled it. And the nice thing about this tool is that you've got a time calculation tool, so you can start a ticker, which is going to calculate your real cut times. Go ahead and stop it. You've also got the ability to reject parts. So if I get to the very end of the cutting process and realize that one of my parts was scrapped for whatever reason might be, you can select Reject Part. Maybe it was damaged in the cutting process. You can select the part that was rejected. And when I update this job saying it's been cut, that part will actually be sent right back up to SigmaNest, so your programmer is going to see it as, hey, this part was actually scrapped. So if you had a requirement of 200 parts, you might see I've got 199 parts that were completed, but I've got one outstanding. So I'm going to go ahead and update this program and remove it from Color Offload. And the nice thing about these tools on the shop floor is the second that I update it on the shop floor, it automatically updates the programming seat of SigmaNest to say this work order was complete, or like I mentioned before, 199 out of 200. Hey, here's this rejected part. We can actually create a classification for that rejected part to where when it shows back up on the work order list in SigmaNest, maybe it says emergency part or hot part. That way your programmer knows, hey, I've got this list of 10 hot parts that got rejected, maybe overnight on third shift when I wasn't here. We need to quickly get those parts back out there on the next nest and just make sure we're being quick to adapt and adjust. So again, I'm just going to run through this process. I could hit the time quicker, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to update them saying I've completed them. And as an operator, again, I'm only seeing the jobs that were posted to my specific machine and in the order that the shop scheduler placed them for my machine. So we've got one more job to update. And we're basically just saying we've completed the work. Let me window out of these two products. And again, I've got SimTrans programming, so I'm accessing the server for this demo. So I've got SigmaNest and SimTrans on the same server, but typically you would not do that. Typically you would just have SimTrans on the server and then SigmaNest locally. But SimTrans just processes the work. So once I update it from color offload, SimTrans goes ahead and runs through the updates to say this work order was completed. I've got 150 out of 200 that are done. Hey, this part got rejected. This is the tool that's communicating everything back and forth between SigmaNest and the shop floor. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn things back over to Josh so he can show what will happen on the Epicor side.
Thanks, Ryan. So basically at this point, you've run all your transactions, you've created your production, you've issued your material against the specific sheet inventory in SigmaNest. So basically what we want to do now is just kind of wrap everything up and just show you the fact that we have the visibility and the integration to capture all that information out of SigmaNest and bring it into the ERP system. So pulling up that job that we were just looking at a second ago, basically I can click on this nesting transactions, and what it's going to do is it's going to actually pull up any information from the sheets that have come through. So, and it's also going to show whether that work order has been complete or not. And so it is a little bit dependent on the integration. So just to kind of show you one that came through previously, you have visibility to your things like your pierce quantity, your true cost, nested cost, total cutting time, the actual sheet that was issued, a completion date, any of the information that came out of SigmaNest for this particular work order, this particular operation of the machine, you have visibility to. So that basically leveraging the architecture of Epicor, you can leverage all of the business objects and methods that's in the system to do things like issuing your material, we issue the material, we post the labor, close the job, all that happens automatically based on what SigmaNest has come back. So once that job's finished, capturing all that information, marked complete, you can go and continue on with your standard job closing procedures. And just kind of wrap everything up, going back to that shop floor, because that has now been completed. 2497 is no longer on our on our demand list on the Epicor side. We've had it fulfilled, and we can go continue shopping or shipping information for that particular customer. So that's basically the full circle.
All right, so hopefully everybody can see back on my screen at this point. But all that being said, just to wrap things up, guys, we appreciate your time today. I've seen some questions come in, and I think we're running short on time, but just understand we will absolutely answer those questions. We have note of them, and if we need to follow up with you and present those to you, we definitely will. In terms of contact information, mine is on the left, Josh is on the right. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear any questions you have. So please keep our contact information. Let us know if there's anything that you didn't see that you would have liked to see. If you have any questions as far as what can Encompass do in terms of the customization and working with SigmaNest, Josh will be more than happy to answer those questions. So hopefully this was beneficial. Again, we thank you for your patience and apologize for some of the delay aspects, but hopefully you enjoyed it anyway. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.